So, hello everyone. Welcome to Cascadia Composer's Monday night presentation. I just wanted to share a couple brief things. I'm going to, first of all, just put in the chat our website and our page about the upcoming Nakusa conference. We've got a series of 6 virtual concerts and presentations beginning on April 17th. So coming right up, and I hope everybody can attend those. We've just had a board meeting today. We've got plans. Well, we're also going to have another concert coming up in May called Unite and Song. And then we're starting to put together plans for a fall concert that will be a live but maybe outdoor concert that will take place in mid-September. And I just want to highlight a couple volunteer opportunities that we're in need of. Social media coordinator, and we're also looking for people who would want to join the planning committee and help plan concerts for the future. So you can get in touch with me if you're interested in any of those. And now I'm going to introduce Andy Lewinter, who is a board member, and he's going to talk about composition for horn from his 14-year horn performance experience. And I'm looking forward to this very much because my wife is also a horn player, and I was just thinking about writing a piece for her recently. So I'm, without further ado, here's Andy.
Hi. Well, this is a French horn. And I thought I would actually want to tell you a little bit about myself first. I spent the first 33 years of my life, or maybe 23 years of my life or so, really focused on playing this instrument. And I spent 13 of it professionally, and I went to Northwestern and I studied in New York. And then at age 33, boom, I stopped playing and I went to law school. Um, After about 16 years, I started composing, which is actually something I had done early in life, and stopped playing. So I took out the horn the other day to see because I knew I was going to be doing this talk, and I have to say I'm so ashamed about the way I sounded after not playing it for 20 years that I don't think I'm going to be giving a lot of examples here, but I want to talk about it. So the first thing I want to talk about actually is how the horn works. And some of you may know, in fact, many of you you all may know this stuff, but I'll go through it kind of quickly. Um, you've got this about mouth piece. And this is really just a kind of a collection of bugles. On each particular fingering, whether it's open, first valve, first and second valve, they're all just different length natural horns or bugles. And on each of those natural horns, you can only play notes in the overtone series. Now, the horn actually, compared to most brass instruments, tends to play very high in the overtone series, which is why it's often regarded as one of the most difficult instruments. That's because the gaps between the partials in the overtone series keep continually get narrower as one goes up in the overtone series, which means that you have to basically hit it right on. In fact, I've got a picture here. I'm going to screen share this if I can. How do you screen share? Hold on. I can't do this. Never mind. Okay, guess I can't do it. I was going to show you this picture we got. It's kind of funny. Is how to explain playing the horn uh, to a pianist. And what the picture shows is the piano keys getting narrower, narrower, and narrower as one goes toward the top of the piano, with making it harder and harder and harder to make sure that you happen to hit the note. And that's why people often say that the horn is one of the more difficult instruments in the orchestra. And of course, when you do miss a note on the horn, it can often sound like someone dropped a tray of plates in a restaurant, and it can really ruin a piece. But anyway, so the instrument is pitched in F. In other words, the open F, well, it's pitched in F, and the notes sound a fifth lower than written. So when I'm going to talk today, I'm going to talk in concert pitch rather than horn pitch. A little bit of a history of the horn. First of all, in the Baroque period, it was just a kind of it was just an open bugle, and it was held above your head. So if you listen to any Bach, like the B minor mass played on period instruments, the B minor mass is a good example. That and the Brandenburg concertos, they've got prominent horn parts. Those parts were played on this instrument that you can really only play in the overtone series. Now, fast forward to the classical period, like Mozart's era, and they figured out that actually if they kind of reworked the instrument and made it so that you could put your hand here, then by closing off the bell, you could actually manage to play, bend or have pitches that are half step off. Let me give an example. Pardon my 20-year flaccid sound. Can you hear that?
Yep.
Okay. So what I did, what I did just now is the top pitch, which is the concert F, I closed my hand. We call that stopped horn, and I'll talk to you about it. It's used in context other than they used it in the classical period. But in the classical period, they would use that technique of closing your hand in the bell to get half steps. So. If you listen to like a Mozart's orchestral concerto, for example, the last one that goes da 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 yeah, is the way they played it in the old time, in Mozart's time, yeah, with the hand. Eventually, well, actually, I should say this too. If you look at a score of Brahms, what he'll do is he'll write 4 horn parts, each pair of horns pitched in a different key. Brahms actually, because he was conservative at least in this respect, very conservative. He liked the sound of the natural horn over the valved horn. So what he did was he would write for example, 1 pair in horn in C and 1 pair horn in E. So he would maximize the number of pitches that he could get without having to rely on closing off the bell and getting that stop sound. Now, eventually, actually, the very first piece written for a valved instrument was Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, and there's a big horn solo. If in the slow movement of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, that's a 4th horn solo, which might seem odd because usually solos are in the principal horn part. The reason that this horn solo, which actually is a scale that's all alone played by the 4th horn, is a solo scale, no other instruments are playing. That's because the 4th horn player in the Vienna Philharmonic at the time happen to have the newfangled valved horn. And what the valved horn does is when you depress a valve, it opens up a section of tubing, thereby putting the horn in a half step lower. So if you put this open, I would be able to get a concert F overtone series, any note in the concert F overtone series. When I push this down, I get any note in the concert E overtone series, E flat, D, and so on. And that way you can get a whole whole lot more notes with all the notes without having to use the technique of stopped horn. And in the 20th century, what they started doing was having kind of combining two horns, a horn in F with horn E, E flat, D, and so on, and then a horn in B flat. When you press the thumb valve down, you're in B flat, so then it's the B flat, A flat, and so on. So on any fingering, I'm playing some partial in some overtone series, and I just don't worry about it. Recently, we actually now have a triple horn. Now, you might think that the triple horn, which is a combination of the regular F horn, B flat, and a high F horn, and just kind of like a piccolo trumpet, it doesn't really extend the register. All it does, in other words, you can't really play higher notes. A little bit you can, but the primary advantage is by making the overtone series a higher overtone series. You're playing on partials that are lower in the overtone series, meaning that you have more room to negotiate. You have a bigger slot you have to hit. It's almost like if you're an archer and you're able to shoot the arrow from a closer range. So now a lot of people use these things called triple horns, which are F, B flat, and high F. Now a good piece actually that actually uses both the natural horn, which has its own very unique sound, partially because of the if you play the open partials, they're out of tune. They're out of tune in a nice way. If you listen to, I don't know if you've all have heard the Britten Serenade for Horn, Tenor, and Strings. It opens with a call on a natural F horn. In other words, you're not supposed to use this instrument to play that open call. You use instead of just a natural horn without valves. The call actually makes use of these out of tune natural harmonics, and it's kind of fun to listen to. So if you get a chance to hear the Britten Serenade, you'll see what I mean when you hear the open call. The opening section that's for natural horn. Okay, so enough about the history. Now I want to talk about the range of the instrument. I would say the best range, let's say the tessitura of the horn, would be from, say, the G below middle C. We think of that as a D because, of course, it sounds, remember, like I said, it sounds a fifth lower than written. So the G below middle C to maybe the C above an octave and a fourth above that. You can play higher than that. You can certainly play lower than that, but that's sort of the best register of the horn. Now, I don't know if anyone else would agree with me about this. I feel like if you don't know an instrument really well and you're not sure about what ranges sound good, just look at a sonata by Paul Hindemith, because he played every instrument. He wrote conservatively for all the instruments. He didn't try to do anything crazy. And he knew the characteristics of the instruments really well. And actually, if you listen to there's a horn sonata. He wrote a horn sonata. He wrote a sonata for alto horn that's generally played on horn too. The horn sonata, really, the opening melody makes use of that tessitura and some characteristics of the horn that are particularly nice. The horn plays, I think, wide slurs really well. If you listen to Strauss, Don Juan, there's the second, I guess, the subordinate theme that I won't play anymore. Anyway, that register, it sounds heroic. It sounds, well, at least when it's played by somebody who's got some chops left. It sounds heroic. It sounds, he knew how to write for the horn because his father was a horn player. Anyway, the low register can sound very rich, but it has some limitations. For example, you don't want to have fast articulations in the low register. Low register also doesn't. It's not really in that tessitura range, so you don't have the sort of the beautiful horn-like sound. It sounds like low horn. It's nice, but the range I just told you about, that's the range where you should really spend most of your time in composing music for the horn. The high register, now you can go as high as a high concert F. That would be an octave and a fourth above middle C. But never do it. Never go up to that high concert F. I mean, if you're going to write a piece, a sonata, and you're going to go to the high concert F once, maybe. But even then, I wrote a horn sonata. I didn't have any high concert Fs. It's a note that you certainly don't want to have to make it difficult, and it's certainly the range between the third space C and the F above that is a register that's all playable, but you should limit how much time you spend in that register, because one of the problems that you have to watch out for when you're writing for this instrument is endurance. It's very tiring, especially to play in that register between third space C and the treble. You understand what I mean when I say third space C? I'm talking about the treble clef now. Between third space C and the fourth above that, the high C, in that register is very tiring. I would limit the amount of time or the amount of music you have in that register. But most of your music between, say, the G below middle C and an octave to an octave and a third or so above that, and then you're okay. Let's see. Oh, the other thing about endurance, and I wrote a horn sonata. It was the very first piece I wrote in this composition part of my life, and I kind of weird for me. I kind of forgot about the fact that if you're writing music for the horn and you're having the horn player play, you really, even in any register, you really do have to write in a significant amount of rests. You have to give the person some time with the horn off the face, because muscles just get tired. And I wrote a piece that, that's actually the challenge actually in that piece is that I probably didn't write enough rests in. So that's something to watch for. Make sure you don't spend too much time in the upper register. Put most of your music in the middle register. You can do some in the lower register too, but it's got its own limitations. And in any register, make sure you write time off for the player. Let's see. Now, high notes. High notes are always easier if the horn player can get a running start. It's much harder to hit the note cold than to do if you can manage to find some note to put in there to do an octave slur up to the high note, it's going to be much easier, and you're less likely to have a missed note. And I think you all know what a missed note. I just actually did a good job of giving you an example of missing a note. It doesn't sound good. Anyway, so that's something you want to try to minimize. Actually, I would say if you want to get a good idea of the instrument, of where it sounds best, listen to the Hindemith horn sonata. It's not in F, because I think he writes so well for the instrument. He writes melodies right in that best register. He knows what sounds good, and wide slurs just sound good on the instrument. It's something we do well. Let's see. And on that same note, high and quiet entrances are very doable, but also difficult. So that's just something to be aware of. If you know Pavane for a Dead Princess, the Ravel piece, there's a high horn solo. It starts high. Let me turn the light on because it looks like I'm in the dark here. You know, Ravel obviously was master orchestrator, but he knew what he was doing. He knew that register of the horn, it may be difficult, but when played well, it has its own unique characteristic. Let's see. So I talked about that. Articulation. Are easier to do higher in the instrument. When I mean articulations, I mean fast articulations. You know, we have three types of articulations we can do when we're talking about fast notes. We can do it, single tonguing is just ta 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 ta. Double tonguing is taka 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 taka. And then there's triple tonguing, which, like as the name sounds, is ta 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 ta. Whether you're talking about single tonguing, double tonguing, or triple tonguing, fast articulations are easier in the middle and upper registers. The lower it gets harder and harder as you go low. And I'm not actually telling you don't write low horn. Low horn can be really beautiful. But one of the limitations of it is you don't want to write a lot of fast articulations down there because it's hard. The reason, if you think about it, when you are playing the horn, you're kind of riding on this airstream. It's a lot easier for your tongue to kind of skip on a fast airstream than to try to articulate on a slow airstream. Think of it kind of like skipping rocks. If you throw I was never very good at skipping rocks, but if you throw the rock quickly, you have a better chance of having it sort of bounce off the water. If you just kind of lob it in there, there's no way it's going to bounce off anything. It's just going to sink. let's see. So I would say that especially if you're talking really fast tonguing, don't do it in the low register. There's actually the low horn. There's not a lot of music that focuses so much on the low register of the instrument, and the lower register of the instrument actually can be really pretty. So I'm not discouraging you from writing that. Just beware that it's hard to tongue fast down there. Let's see. Okay, let me talk about mutes. How are we doing for time? Okay, let me talk about mutes. First of all, when you heard about stopped horn, I was talking to you about that in the context of how they played the horn during Mozart's day. But stopped horn is a technique that's used very frequently now because it has that biting kind of sound. It's got that sound, which it can be very effective. Don't try to write stopped horn too low because the ratio that allows you to play stopped horn and have the pitch be a half step off doesn't work as well when you go low. In fact, if it's too low, you have to use a special mute called a stopping mute. But I think it's just probably best to be avoided. There's also mutes, and I don't have one to show you. It's something along gives it a muted quality, slightly different tone quality, just like string players who have mutes. And as in writing for strings, just beware that that you consider the time to pick up the mute, stick it in the bell, and to take it out. You just need and even though they actually have a string that goes around your wrist, so you can do it quickly, you still need a couple of beats to put it in and take it out. And then of course there's trills, which are possible. They're not really that hard to do. Okay, boy, I've been talking for about a half an hour and I've gone over most of the information. Tell me, do you guys have any questions about writing for the horn?
Yeah, Andy.
Yeah.
Let me give you three examples that I would imagine you're very familiar with, and ask you how you think they fit in the range you've described as really good for the French horn. The opening of the Mahler Third Symphony is pretty
Excellent range.
because
Yes.
8 French horns are playing this thing of a melody, and it is unbelievable.
And and it's powerful. I mean,
Incredibly
it's really powerful. Actually, the movement is powerful. That's the indication.
Another one, the opening of the Brahms B flat concerto.
That's a beautiful register. Those are both of those pieces are in the register that I described. The Mahler third starts on a concert A below middle C, goes to the D above middle C. Bum beam bum beam bum 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 beam bum 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 bum. And the Brahms starts on the B flat, just below middle C.
Yeah.
Beautiful use of the instrument.
So it's perfect right where.
Just perfect. Yeah. Yeah.
Brahms trio today, the Sonata. Do they use? He wrote it for natural horn, but does anybody play it that way?
I've never heard. I don't think. Maybe I heard one person play it on natural horn. No one does it. We played on a valve horn.
And he liked,
And I guess he liked that sound though. And actually, if you think about that piece, I don't know if you all are familiar with the Brahms horn trio. It's Opus 40. I guess he imagined it to sound sort of like da 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 dee, you know, because that half step off. The only way you could get that on a natural horn would be to close your hand to stop the note with your hand in the bell like this.
That's what he's requiring then.
That's what I assume that's what he imagined, but none of us do that. I can't think of a single recording, and I've played it numerous times. And of course, I didn't play natural horn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those three come to mind.
Yeah. Another piece. Well, I guess I gave you this example already. That really, that theme in the Strauss Don Juan. That's G below middle C to G above middle C. That's right in the nicest register. And he knew it. He knew that if he was going to write in that register, it would sound thick and heroic.
I have a question, Andy.
Yeah.
When we're writing, say for an orchestra, so there will be more than one horn or four horns, do we need to be cognizant of when the pitch goes to, say, an A, horn in A or horn in B flat, or
no,
we just write it and you
write
guys?
it? Yeah, I mean, I actually just finished a horn piece this morning. I wrote the whole piece in concert pitch and then hit the transpose button on my on my computer. No, you shouldn't. Don't be cognizant of that at all. And modern horn parts are always written in F. In fact, I had a close friend who had perfect pitch. He played in the orchestra with me. He had perfect pitch, and in ear training in college, he failed a couple of tests because every single pitch that he was supposed to write down that they played, he was exactly 1/5 off. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Uh-huh.
What about, I mean, let's take, for example, the Brookner fourth.
Yeah.
Now, is that difficult for the horn player to do?
I would. It's definitely a piece that is particularly given how exposed that solo is. There's a the solo, what Dennis is talking about, the solo that begins Brookner's Fourth Symphony starts on a concert B flat above middle C. Just I guess that'd be a third line in the treble clef. It's not. I wouldn't say it's difficult. It's definitely it's quiet. It's a quiet entrance all alone that begins the piece. It's definitely not something you want to miss. I wouldn't say it's difficult, but it is nerve-wracking.
Okay.
Yeah. It's one of those pieces that you're glad when the whole set's over that you didn't screw it up.
On the trills, I'm assuming that in the lower tessitura, the trills, you probably should avoid them simply because they won't articulate
very good
well.
question. Trills are best. I mean, the best register for the trills, I would say, is between above the G first space F in the treble clef a fifth higher, that's the best register for the trills. Because actually, as you go lower, you can't. Part of the reason is this: the easiest trills are the lip trills for me. Trying to play a trill with your finger is awkward. And as you go lower in the instrument, the partials are further and further apart. You're limited to using the valve. So you want a trill in a range of the instrument where you can just do a lip trill. So that would be, say, between maybe the E flat that's above middle C, about a fifth higher than that would be the best trill notes.
You're talking concert pitch. E flat.
I'm trying to just only talk to you guys in concert pitch. I'm not talking horn pitch. If I'm talking to a group of horn players instead of composers, I'd be talking horn pitch.
Andy, I have a basic question that I always ask, wind brass players, especially, almost anybody besides a pianist, with slurs, notationally. I mean, how much does the performer sort of take that with a grain of salt? I mean, as far as to what would sound good musically, obviously the composer is going to want to try to put in, whether it should be articulated, not non-slurred notes in a melody, let's say, as opposed to slurred tonguing versus non-tonguing. But I mean, like, is there a little bit of sort of poetic license that a performer does? Or
I
not?
would say no. Actually, performers, I was, as a performer, I generally took greater liberties than most people. I just felt like, I would put in, small crescendos if I thought the music needed it. I had one teacher that I just took a few lessons from, who had this attitude: if there's no crescendo, don't play one. And which I thought was just really like, you're not a computer, you're a musician. Articulations that are different. You wouldn't.
Yeah,
I take that back. I have put in some articulations where I thought it was quite a bit easier, but rarely. Generally the answer is no. You play the articulations on the page.
Especially today, right? I mean, yeah.
Especially today, yeah.
Andy, thank you. I got to leave early. I appreciate it. Good to hear.
Sure. Take care, David. Okay, other questions?
On the slurs for wide intervals, on your notes there, you were saying like an octave. I'm assuming that in general, the slurs work really well if they're just simply following the overtone series, right?
Yeah, actually, that's true. If you think about the opening of Ein Heldenleben, do you know that piece?
Yeah.
Strauss piece. Okay. The opening starts on. It's actually it's a little awkward, but he really makes use of this wide range of the instrument with the slurs. But that kind of follows for the most part the overtone series too, of the E flat. E flat, and I would say E flat is generally a good key for the horn. As a high note, I mean, I don't know about you all when you're writing for an instrument. I always think about what key I'm going to put the piece in. One of the considerations is when I get to the climax of the piece, when I want the high note that's going to be kind of at the apex of this piece. Where's it going to be? And if you're writing a horn piece, if you're writing in an E flat, the high E flat is actually a great high note, and both a lot of concertos have been written in an E flat for horn. Both Strauss concertos are written in the key of E flat. All the Mozart concertos are, except for the first one, are in the key of E flat. It's a key that just sits well on the horn for some reason.
And
Yeah.
it's with a note that high up in that high E flat, don't have them just blurt it out without having an approach to it.
Generally, yes. Generally, yes. But if you listen to the yeah, I would say that's true. That's good advice.
It'll be more risky if they
Absolutely.
have to put
There's a high E flat, or what we call a high B flat, in the beginning of the Strauss second concerto. That's really that's really effective, but that's unusual. And plus that high E flat, the horn player's already been playing, so he doesn't have to kind of sit there and really hit the notes cold. He's already been playing, and he doesn't have to sit there thinking about how he doesn't want to miss it.
Andrew,
Yeah.
do you have any observations about that famous horn solo in the Ravel Piano Concerto? I think it comes in
You
a
know
high
what?
C.
You know what? Thinking about it, when I was talking about the solo from Pavane for a Dead Princess, that also has a solo. But I was actually thinking about the one that the solo in the Piano Concerto. It's really, everything that Ravel did it was so well thought out and so well orchestrated. But it's definitely tricky. But
Which movement is that in?
It's a second movement, slow movement,
What?
I think.
no, it's in the first movement.
Is it in the first
It
movement?
goes, dun, dee, dee, ah, dee, ah, da, dee, da. I don't sing so well either. But it's effectively written, that one. Really it is. But I have to tell you, whenever we played that piece, I brought my Descan horn, and I played because I didn't want to miss that note.
Can I ask you a weird question,
I had a French
Andy?
horn roommate once, and I remember when I was up in Winnipeg Symphony, and I remember him dreading that and sweating that solo.
Yeah, you play it on a desk horn. If you bring your Descan horn, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Paul?
Oh, I was going to ask you more of an esoteric question. Besides kind of more traditional horn trios of various types and brass ensembles, do you have any combinations of instruments, ensembles that would be, more unique combinations of timbres that you have always thought would be interesting, either for yourself or for somebody else to write?
Well, yeah,
that include horn. Yeah.
Sure, I've been writing a lot of chamber music that includes horn. Let's say I wrote a piece for that. For some reason, there are very few pieces, or I haven't really found any pieces for this combination: trumpet, trombone, horn, piano.
Trumpet, trombone.
Which actually makes sense. It's just it's almost like a piano, like a standard piano trio with brass instruments substituting for the string instruments. I wrote there have been other pieces written for the same combination. I wrote a piece for horn, oboe, and piano that works really well, because the horn and the nice thing with the horn and the oboe is they have contrasting.
I've heard that before.
They have contrasting timbres. It just works. There's a Herzogenberg and a Reinig. You probably know these pieces, Greg, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Reinicke and a Herzogenberg.
Yeah. The Reinickes are very nice.
Very nice. Yeah.
I haven't. See, there's a couple of them, isn't there?
No, there's one Reinicke, and and then there's the Herzogenberg, and then there's of course the Lewinter. Anyway,
Andrew, I'm going to have to go. Sorry.
Oh,
thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you for coming.
No, thank you. I appreciated it very much.
Sure. I'm glad you came.
Okay.
Nice meeting you.
Andy,
Yeah.
What do you mean by you, earlier you said you brought your descant horn?
Oh,
Is that-
yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I should explain. Okay. For some reason, we horn players call the horn that's pitched in high F, or that's a double horn. You see, the standard double horn like this is pitched in F and B flat. And then there's a horn that we call the descant horn for whatever reason, that's pitched in the B flat like this is, and the F above. And by using that instrument, when we have some touchy solo, like the solo from the piano concerto, the Ravel Piano Concerto that Greg was just talking about, it allows you to play the same solo in a lower harmonic series. I'm sorry, a higher harmonic series. So you're playing lower down in a higher harmonic series, meaning that you've got a wider target to hit the note. You're less likely to miss it. It really doesn't change the register of the instrument for whatever reason. And I think the same is true, really, because a lot of the things I've been saying here are true for any brass. The same ideas I think are true on any brass instrument. For example, the piccolo trumpet, if you compare that to a C trumpet or a B flat trumpet, it doesn't really extend the register that much, maybe a little bit. Maybe you can play a little bit higher. And you certainly wouldn't, if you're a trumpet player, certainly wouldn't want to play the Brandenburg Second Concerto on a B flat trumpet, because then you for sure screw it up. But it gives you a little bit of I guess an advantage so that since you're playing in a higher a lower note in a higher harmonic series, you've got a wider area to hit the note. The note's not so small. The notch is not so small, if you know what I mean. You might not know what I mean. Anyway,
the sweet spot is bigger.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's too bad I couldn't share my screen with that picture of the piano with the notes getting skinnier and skinnier as they got higher, because that's what the picture is. How to explain playing the French horn to a pianist. The low notes, the keys are like this, are this big. The high notes, the keys are like this. Anyway, and are there any other questions about this?
I had one.
Sure.
The tone quality of, say, when you're playing a triple horn, in that upper register, is the tone quality markedly different than if you were playing it with a double horn?
No, not really. Not really. In fact, a triple horn is really just, you remember how I was talking about the descant horn, which is right. E flat and high F, and the standard double horn is F and B flat. A triple horn, most triple horns anyway, so there are some variations here, but most of the triple horns are three horns, F, B flat, high F. And the advantage for someone who buys a triple horn, they've gotten actually more and more popular as they've gotten better, is that you don't have to bring a descant horn. You play on one instrument, and you play everything on one instrument.
Okay, now I'm going to ask something really gross. And you can probably guess. Spit.
Oh yeah, definitely not. Yeah, okay. It's just condensation.
Yeah, right.
You'll do it.
Is there anything we should watch out for in terms of the amount of time, or is it just is that mostly just a feature of what the ambient temperature is in the room?
I guess to some extent, I wouldn't take it into consideration in composing music at all. Some instruments. This is kind of this is not the horn that I played on for most of my life. It's actually kind of a cheap horn. Most horns have a little button that you just go like that, and
right.
it's done. So don't worry about it. Let the horn player take care of that.
Just be cognizant of it if they've got an extended passage.
Yeah, I think actually one of the biggest takeaways I would say is if you're writing from this talk, be careful about high entrances that are sort of unprepared, because it takes you don't want to write music that only a really, really good player can confidently play, unless you're only writing for the best players. When I was in the orchestra years ago, has anyone ever worked with a composer? Well, I probably named Carson Keithman. Well, he wrote this piece that we played in the orchestra, and it was supposed to represent a spaceship. And he obviously generated this piece on a computer without giving any thought to the characteristics of the instrument he was writing for. So he wrote this, so the horn part, and I just got so pissed off at this. The horn part had no place to breathe or rest, and was just skipping around, so uncharacteristic. So I guess look at a Hindemith horn sonata before you write anything for the instrument. I think in general, I think if I write another sonata, and actually where I learned that is I wrote a tuba sonata after I wrote a horn sonata, since I've always liked the tuba a lot. And I had a friend I have several friends who play well the tuba. I decided to write a tuba sonata, and one of the people who I wrote it for said, look at the Hindemith tuba sonata. He's conservative. He doesn't do anything crazy or hard. That's the register. That think of that that as your limitation. And I think it's probably good advice. Unless you play the instrument really well and you know the instrument really well, like I know the horn really well. If I write a sonata for any other instrument, I probably will look at, the Hindemith sonata for that instrument before I take a stab.
If you look at the Hindemith cello sonata, it's really hard.
Oh, never mind. Okay.
I have another question, and that is, it sounds like if you need to rest periodically, you should not write unaccompanied music for the horn. It should be part of an ensemble. Is that true?
No, I mean, there are pieces for unaccompanied horn.
Not too long.
Yeah, well, I think it's okay to put in some rest where the player gets to breathe for a beat, and they're just silence there. I wouldn't just be aware that if you're writing a piece for unaccompanied horn, and you have a lot of high music, it's going to get very tiring.
Yeah.
Just stay in the middle, stay mostly in the middle register, and then you can save those higher notes for really intense moments, and they'll have more impact.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that advice definitely applies to any brass instrument. And all the brass instruments, they all work basically the same way. They're all basically bugles.
I have to mention, boy, I've learned a lot, Andy. I've accompanied so many horn concerti when I worked at the Interlochen Music Camp, and I accompanied kids who played, like professional, some of them, and also it took some music there, and the staff ensembles would play them, and I had a woodwind quintet. Mm-hmm. And all the players loved it. In fact, we named it the quintet after that ensemble, but the horn player really liked it, and he put in a lot of his own ideas, stopped horn and so on and so forth. But he wanted me to write an unaccompanied horn piece, and I was scared to death. There was no way I'd try that.
Yeah.
And I wrote to him back and forth, for about a year, and I said, I can't even get started with this. I just can't imagine.
Who was the teacher?
Oh boy, I don't
horn
remember.
Teacher? You don't remember his name?
Oh gee, I don't even remember. That was
because I went to camp there and studied there for years. Yeah.
Oh yes, I love Interlaken. It's so fun.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I worked there for many summers as a piano practice supervisor and accompanist, and it started in the days where the juniors and intermediates had smaller pieces, but by the time I got there, they had big major pieces, and I think the first piece I accompanied was a horn concerto. I can't remember if it was Mozart or Haydn, but I thought, what is this? This is not a little piece, but it was fun. But I was surprised that the girl that played it was not used to working with an accompanist or even playing it other than by herself. So it was difficult for her to play with somebody with me playing. I had to really be sparse and really cut it out. But I've learned so much. And I've written in brass ensembles and so on and so forth. And always follow the guidance in the orchestration books and talk to players, somewhat. But this is really informative. It's like really getting the inside stories. I really appreciate all your comments.
Oh, I'm glad to have done this. It's been a lot of fun. Let's see, does that have any other thoughts or questions or concerns?
I was just curious if you wanted to just say a few words about, I know nothing about any sort of extended techniques on the horn.
Let's see. Chords that is definitely an extended technique, rarely used. Since I'm this out of shape, but I have done it before. In fact, I've performed pieces that included chords. The idea is you actually play one note, you sing the fifth higher, and if you're perfectly in tune, the third comes out somehow. Yeah.
So it's a combination of the harmonics of both the voice and like throat singing or something. So that could be that's something to possibly explore.
Yeah. Let's see, other extended techniques.
There's the clicking. Does clicking work?
No one does that.
You can't really do that.
I've never seen it. I've never seen a piece that includes that. There may be.
But
I have played a piece where I played the horn into the open piano. That's not really an extended technique.
How about just blowing air into the horn?
I know no pieces like that.
A few years back,
a lot. I had a solo career. You wouldn't know it from listening to me today, but I actually did have a solo career. I played lots of concerts. I put on a disc of contemporary music. I just never had anything.
Yeah, just a few years back, the San Francisco Symphony performed, I can't remember the composer's name, but the brass instruments, actually I think the whole wind section, he had them actually blowing into the instruments.
Okay.
And it had an eerie type sound to it that was.
Yeah.
When you have all the wind instruments
doing it, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
It has its own. It's like its own sound, almost like an organ in some ways, but only not an organ sound.
Andrew, if I can help you out a little bit here,
Sure. Yeah.
there's a wonderful book that I've had. I don't know if I can get it up here so you can see it.
I see a horn, kind of.
It's called Extended Techniques for the Horn by Douglas Hill.
Oh, okay. What extended techniques does he mention?
Well, it's pretty. There are
Okay.
pages here dealing with quarter tones and different types of bends and glissandos and.
Oh, that actually, that's a good thing to note. With the stopped horn, I just mentioned that, and if you listen to Britain's Serenade, you hear this too. He actually, you can actually do a glissando by opening your hand slowly, like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
about how
can-
far a range can that, like a true glissando
Well,
go?
that would just be a half step.
That should be just a half
That
step.
would be just.
That's be like what you
So,
normally do with
because
your stopped hand.
When you put your hand, when you stop a note,
It's only a half step. Yeah.
it's right. It sounds a half step
Yeah.
higher.
Higher. Okay.
Right. So you play, actually mentally transpose it a half step down to play the stop note.
Can you fake it or something like with like I don't know, like moving your, like physically moving the horn sort of, or no, not really.
No, never did that. There's also glissandos. I mean, basically,
Yeah.
where you do rips.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've done that.
doesn't Strauss has some of that in some of his writing, doesn't he? Was it Strauss?
Mahler maybe too, or
Maybe Mahler. I was thinking Strauss for some reason. Something like.
Yeah, I mean, I've played a solo piece that has that in it.
Yeah.
But
Is that a true glissando, or is that just hitting some higher partials in the overtone
you
series?
you basically rip through the whole harmonic series. It's
Okay.
kind of fun to do.
From bottom to top. Okay.
Yeah, but that piece was by Marcel Biche. Yeah. And so what are some of the other extended techniques that Doug Hill mentions?
Well, let me just give you a little more information about it. Doug Hill was professor of horn at University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Yeah.
I don't know what time. The book is copyrighted 2010, and it's Extended Techniques for the Horn by Douglas Hill, and is published by Really Good Music, LLC, in Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And I think you could just go to, look that up,
Okay.
Google that, and get more information on it.
Okay.
I know the copy I got is a, this is original one. I guess I had a Xerox copy of it, and then I finally found an original. So I think it's readily available. But Extended Techniques for the Horn, a practical handbook for students, performers, and composers. This is the
That's
full
good.
title.
Thank you. Yeah.
And it's very, even the copy I had even comes with a little CD of
Really?
of some of the techniques demonstrated. And so it's, if you really want to get into that,
Yeah,
might be very,
that's helpful. Thank
very
you,
helpful.
actually, because as a performer, I was, well, I guess you could say I was pretty conservative. I played a lot of 20th century music, but I stopped playing in the year of 2000. So
Can I ask you another?
Actually, I never played any 21st century music. It didn't exist. What were you saying, Paul?
Oh, I just have another kind of weird basic question here. I'm just tossing them out. Sitting versus standing. Do many horn players, can they play standing easily?
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah.
First of all, any self-respecting soloist stands.
Yeah.
Some horn players, there's a split. There's people who play the horn on their knee, and people who will play like this.
Mm-hmm.
off their knee. I was the off the knee type.
But the chamber music situation, would you, I mean, prefer one or the other? Or kind of
I would generally sit for that.
yeah, just long term, kind of a longer
Yeah,
piece,
that kind. I always
that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think period instrument people generally stand.
Yeah.
If you in the Mahler First Symphony, there's a bells up at the very end. You've probably seen that before. They could, right?
Yeah.
All the instruments, the clarinet,
Right.
everyone's like this. Yeah.
And that's both for kind of for the
I
sound
think-
and for to some extent theatrics, right?
Definitely, definitely. I think probably more theatrics than sound. Yeah.
Andy, I have a quick question, getting back to Interlaken. What was the name of your horn teacher? I was trying to remember
Bill-
that a
Bill
while
Vermeulen.
ago. What's his name?
Bill Vermeulen.
Bill?
Bill Vermeulen. He plays principal horn in Houston now.
Oh, no, that wasn't it. I was trying to remember the horn teacher's name, but this was during the camp season, not
So this
the,
was I only went during the camp season. Actually,
Oh,
I
okay.
went really to study with him because he at the time that I started studying with him, he was 21 years old and he was just kind of a wunderkind. He was he was actually very, very helpful to me.
well, one of the horn teachers had a son that played violin, and I accompanied him a lot. And he was so cute because he looked more like a football player than a musician, and he would come, just all disheveled but he played violin beautifully.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Now, this was the early 80s. So
oh yeah, this was
yeah.
mine was mostly in the 2000.
Yeah, this is a long time ago.
Yeah.
Out there then.
Well, I probably saw you play there because I lived in Traverse City for a while. So
Oh, did you?
anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, small world. But getting back to the glissando, one of the special effects that this horn player did in my quintet was he did a glissando, and it ended in kind of a pop. So I don't know if that was a stopped horn or.
Well, you can't. I could imagine pressing the valve down halfway. And you get something like that. Do you notice the tone quality?
Yeah.
That was with the valve. You could use something like that as a technique. I think I may have seen a piece that includes that technique in it. Yeah. Definitely chords though. Yeah, in fact, I've played a number of contemporary pieces, well, 20th century pieces back then, in the 1990s, that included chordal writing. Yeah, and that actually, if done well, and it's not easy, but it can be very effective. Yeah. Anyway, I don't really have an awful lot else to say here. Does anyone have any other questions about the horn? Definitely, if you haven't heard the Britten Serenade for Horn and Strings, listen to it. It's a great piece, and it really uses the horn well. He really uses it well, and you get to hear some of that natural horn playing at the beginning and at the end, the epilogue.
Well, Andy, thanks so much for
Sure.
presenting.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you for asking me to do this. It was it was very enjoyable, and it actually forced me to get this out of the case. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad you did. I sure learned a lot.
Yeah.
Lots of good
Thank you
stuff
for
here.
all this information.
Thanks so
Sure.
much. Andy.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Appreciate
Well,
it.
good night, everyone.
Good night. Good
Good
to see you
night.
all.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.